2173 BC, 1722 AM. The ancient Earth-killer comet group passes over the ecliptic after 66 years, 792 months, north of the ecliptic on its elliptical orbit, the detritus of Nibiru completing its 396-year orbit. The calendrics for this year are intriguing. This was the 1200 year of the Olmec calendar, or 432,000 days, and 930 of the Vedic, or 792 plus 138, the orbital periods of Nibiru and Phoenix combined. 2139 BC, 1756 AM. Since the mid-19th century AD, researchers of the unique alignments of the Great Pyramid have noted that the scored lines of the descendant passage point at the star Alcyone at about the year 2141 BC. This was cited by E. Raymond Capt, and many decades later it was again calculated at 2141 BC by others. The star Alcyone is in Taurus, the Bull constellation, and Alcyone means the centre. This is of epic importance. John Landseer, reporting for the Royal Institute of Great Britain, Society of Antiquarians, reported in 1822 AD that Chaldean astronomical revelations convey that a conjunction of planet Jupiter and the Sun occurred at the boundary between the zodiacal houses of Taurus and Aries, happened in about 2141 BC, marking the end of the age of the Bull and start of the Ram Age. The actual date is 2 years later, in 2139 BC, as borne out in the calendrics. As Alcyone marks the centre, we see that this year is the epicentral year for an amazing isometric projection. This year was 2170 years after the Phoenix chronology began, with the total destruction of the pre-Adamic world in 4309 BC by the appearance of God executing judgment. Counting 2170 years after this central year, identified in the chronometry of the Great Pyramid, was 32 AD, which marks the appearance of God again on Earth. Confirming this amazing timeline is the fact that 2170 plus 2170 years is exactly 4340 years, or 10 judged time periods of 434 years each. Judged time epochs are the subject of the compelling research of biblical chronologist Stephen Jones in his Secrets of Time. In 4309 BC, the chief cornerstone that the builders, Anunnaki, rejected, destroyed the world of their creation, and 4340 years later, he appeared on earth among men to finalize his work of judgment. 1. The Great Pyramid, Kept. 2. The destruction of Atlantis. 3. When time began, Age of the Ram, Sitchin. 2137 BC, 1758 AM. Chinese records indicate that the sun darkened in this year during Emperor Chang's reign, and his astrologers were executed for not having predicted it. Because of the slight disparities in the dating of other events before and after the flood by the early Chinese, who describe the same events, it is a good possibility that this sun darkening occurred in 2101 BC, the exact year Phoenix appeared for the first time after the deluge. From this time forward throughout the Old Bronze Age and Late Bronze Age, the ancient were terrified of Phoenix, and the reappearance of this celestial object that immersed with the sun was predicted several times through history. See 1135 BC and 583 BC. Eclipse's prediction was too sophisticated at this early date. 1. Our cosmic ancestors. 2121 BC, 1774 AM. Nama is 800 years old, beautiful and regarded by those after the flood as Mother Goddess, known to be the oldest living human. By this time she has given birth to Semiramis, destined to be remembered as the most famous and sexually promiscuous woman of Babylon antiquity. By this time Nama has scorned Noah. Her death is not known, but Enoch's progeny lived on average between 930 and 969 years. 2119 BC, 1776 AM. Canaan went out and discovered a monument of some kind from before the deluge covered in inscriptions left behind by the Anunnaki, their offspring, the giants. Canaan translated these writings and learned that they concern the motion of celestial bodies, but he hid this knowledge and discovery from Noah at the time, because Noah preached against the knowledges and science of the Watchers. This date has calendrics aligned perfectly with other Anunnaki and Nephilim timelines. This is the 720th year of the Anunnaki dynasty that began at Noah's birth, the year of the oppression over the Sethites. That was the year 1056 Annus Mundi, and the discovery of the antediluvian knowledges on astronomy is exactly 4224 years before Armageddon, when the Anunnaki are defeated, or 1056 times 4. This was 1320 years after the descent of the Anunnaki in 3439 BC, or 15,840 months, 7920 plus 7920. This year is the beginning, as suggested by the year 1776 Annus Mundi, 120 years after the flood, 120 years being 1440 months. Canaan was the son of Arphaxad, who was the son of Shem, 1 Jubilees.